My name is Adam Andrzejewski. I'm the CEO and founder of OpenTheBooks.com. Thank you very much for attending this week's segment of the Ripoff of the Week. And we've got one that drives everybody, left, right, and center, absolutely crazy. And that's corrupt members of Congress reaping lifetime taxpayer-funded federal pensions, even when they're sitting in jail and afterwards. Before we get to it, I just want to go over our mission. You know what it is. Simply stated, it's every dime online in real time. And to that end, last year, our auditors filed 41,500 Freedom of Information Act requests on virtually every single substantial government unit in this country. And we collected for the first time ever virtually every single public employee at every level of government across the entire country. That's federal, state, and local. And you can see who by name that works for what unit of government, how much they make, in what position. You can see all of that on our website. So you can hold the political class accountable for tax and spend decisions. Before we get into the ripoff of the week today, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Tamara Colbert. Hey, Tamara.
Good afternoon, Adam. Hey, we've got some great things to talk about today. So let's just get right into it, because congressional craziness. Is it true that no member of Congress has ever had their pension stripped because of public corruption convictions?
Well, make no mistake, Tamara. Corrupt members of Congress, they deserve time in jail. They don't deserve taxpayer-funded federal pensions. Look, even in Illinois, our convicted governors, when they go to jail, they lose their state pensions. But it's never happened in Congress. Not one single time has a corrupt and convicted member of Congress ever been stripped of their federal pension. Look, every 6 months, we reach out, we ask the question in the Office of Personnel Management. They're the federal agency in charge of federal pensions and congressional pensions. And every single time for the last 2 years, they've answered that question and they said no. No member has ever been stripped of their federal pension because of a corruption conviction.
So what are the rules for vesting, Adam? How does that work? And, is this based on years in Congress and is it different in the House versus the Senate?
Well, the congressional pensions, they're lucrative, and Congress writes the rules, so you can well imagine how lucrative they are. So here's the rule, and there's a lot of confusion on this. So your pension vests after 5 years. So once you win for a third term, you're in. You get a federal pension. You can start to collect that pension as early as age 50, as long as you have 20 years worth of federal service in. These pensions are not transparent, so we're always guessing by virtue of the formulas that are known, but that's not good enough. Look, we have legislation in there to open the federal pensions to sunshine. In a lot of the states, including corrupt Illinois, we can see who gets what once they retire. We need that at the federal level. And I want to give you an example of why. So Paul Ryan, the Republican Speaker of the House, he had served in Congress for more than 20 years when you count his staff positions. And so he got to retire at age 48. And just the 18 months after he retired, he turned age 50. And Paul Ryan started collecting a pension of $85,000 a year if he started collecting it at age 50. We don't actually know if he did because we can't see it. We don't know who gets what, but he probably did. 85 grand a year for the rest of his life.
That's unbelievable. That is unbelievable. I mean, that's even beyond what the average median household income is for a majority of citizens in our country. It's crazy. So who has been convicted of felonies recently?
So you've got 2 Republican members of the House that were recently convicted over the course of the last 12 months. You got Chris Collins, he was a Republican out of the state of New York, I think it was lying to the FBI and certainly was securities fraud. He pled guilty, and he could be the first member of Congress ever to be stripped of his pension. And then you had Duncan Hunter out of California. So Duncan Hunter was indicted by the feds on 59 counts of different actions. He pled down to a single count of misusing campaign cash And we believe he won't be stripped of his pension. And he's a young guy. He's only 43 years old right now. And if he starts collecting his pension as early as he can, at age 55, then he'll collect, we calculate, $1.2 million over the course of his life. Now, it was alleged by the feds, when he was indicted, that he misused up to $250,000 of his campaign, that he used it for meals and travel on a personal basis, which you can't do. There's supposed to be an iron wall between your campaign fund and using personal dollars. And part of the travel misuse that they alleged was flying his pet rabbit, Engelbert, across country and paying for his ticket out of his campaign fund.
He's going to jail because of his pet rabbit. Not very smart. Well, are we really going to miss those legislators? Because obviously not making good choices there. So in the last 5 years, I know you have some insight on some pretty brazen members of Congress that have been convicted. You want to share some of those stories?
Well, probably the most brazen, and this was characterized as the FBI as the most brazen in history. And sure enough, in the history of Congress, William Jefferson has the longest prison sentence ever. He was sentenced to 13 years in the federal penitentiary. And you'll remember William Jefferson because in 2007, he's the guy the feds caught with the cold, hard cash. They convicted him on bribery, and they found $90,000 of cash in his freezer.
Definitely cold, hard cash.
Look, in the last 5 years, you've got Democrat Chakafata out of Pennsylvania. He was sentenced to 10 years, which is the second longest prison sentence. He was convicted, I believe, on 10 counts. He just got out of prison. He had appealed twice. And the coronavirus pandemic accomplished something that Chakafata couldn't accomplish on his own. The court wouldn't let him out of jail early, but the jailers, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, let him out early because of the coronavirus.
Oh my goodness.
Again, nobody's been stripped. And Chakafata was indicted and convicted even after, he's supposed to be subject to all the pension reform legislation, but he continued to get his pension.
So I know we've got a really famous convicted former member of Congress, Jesse Jackson Jr. What's that story?
So Jesse Jackson Jr. in, I believe it was 2012, he knew he was going to be indicted. Eventually, he was indicted for misuse of his campaign fund, taking it personally for over $700,000. He was eventually convicted. But right before he was arrested, Jesse Jackson Jr. filed for workers' compensation insurance and federal disability insurance, infamously saying that Congress made him mentally ill. Now, I don't think anybody's going to dispute that when you go to Congress, something's got to, be wrong with you, that the place is full of mentally ill people. But he was actually able to monetize it for over $100,000 a year worth of disability and workers' compensation insurance. We know this because the Chicago Tribune found this in the divorce file in 2017. And if he's still getting it, he'll have received over $1 million worth of disability and workers' comp from the different programs.
And so Betty is pointing out that what's wrong about this is that people who work all their lives cannot draw from Social Security until they're 65. And these members of Congress who have basically more 20 years in their career left are able to draw on pensions at 50 years old. That's incredible.
Well, Tamara, not only are they able to draw the pension, but they also get Social Security. And they get a third program that nobody talks about. But our auditors at openthebooks.com, we've written about this at Forbes in my column. They get a taxpayer-funded match on their 401k, and it's very lucrative. Nancy Pelosi has served in Congress for 34 years, and we estimate she'll be able to withdraw a $1 million lump sum payment if she wants, just on the taxpayer funded portion of her 401k plan. Nancy Pelosi, between her pension and Social Security, if she retires after this election cycle, we estimate she'll be north of $150,000 plus that $1 million lump sum.
That's unbelievable. Wow. Are there any other retirement perks that the members receive? Like you're talking about this double dipping, the 401k plan. What about Mitch McConnell? What does he get? Are there millionaire members of Congress that are also we have quite a few millionaire members of Congress as well.
So Mitch McConnell is worth about 22 million, that's estimated. And he'll also be able to withdraw. He's been there for 36 years. He'll be able to withdraw about 1.1 million from that taxpayer funded portion of his 401k. He doesn't make as much money as Nancy Pelosi. This year he'll make about $192,000. So his pension's not quite as lucrative, but between his federal pension and Social Security, he's probably around $140,000 a year for the rest of his life.
So there's other millionaires, like people that are, have maybe had a company or been a CEO or wealthy, and they go to Congress, and they all get to take also these incredible pensions and all these benefits, and yet they don't need them.
They don't need them. The average net worth of a member of Congress is $1.1 million. So Tamara, that begs the question, why? Why are we taxpayers funding pensions and lucrative retirement programs for millionaire members of Congress?
Yeah, that's the question, Adam, that we really do need to solve. And until Open the Books actually gets access to all the numbers before, right? We can't really do anything about it. Is there anything, though, that any of the viewers, there's quite a few viewers that are really hot under the collar over this discussion. What can they do? Anything?
Well, there's two pieces of legislation right now in this Congress. One of them has already passed the Senate. U.S. Senator from Indiana, Mike Braun, has a bill that would allow members of Congress to opt out. People would run on that. We need that. Nancy Pelosi will not call that bill in the House. So you need to call your member of Congress and bring the heat so they see the light. The second piece of legislation is in the House. It's Republican Congressman out of Georgia, Jody Hice, and he's got this pension transparency bill. It would also bring transparency to federal performance bonuses. And there's about $1 billion worth of performance bonuses. So if you want to see who gets what on federal pensions, if you want to see who gets what on federal performance bonuses, we the taxpayer, it's our money. We deserve to see it. We need to be able to follow it. Those are two good pieces of legislation to get behind.
So can we post the numbers of those pieces of legislation here so that folks actually have that number that they can reference when they call their legislators?
Yes, and the quick way to find that is on our website, underneath the About Us, in our annual report. If you click on that and open it up, there's a piece on legislation, and you'll see 5 pieces of legislation that's been inspired by our work just over the course of the past 12 months. Those 2 bills are a part of it.
Okay, that's great. Hey, you guys, Open the Books cannot investigate the checkbooks without your help. So go to openthebooks.com, sign up for not just their newsletters. You know what? It's cheaper than a cup of coffee a day at Starbucks. You can give $30 a month to Open the Books, or whatever you can give, a one-time gift or monthly, because that is going to help our auditors continue to engage in transparency for you, the taxpayer. And we really appreciate it. Adam, last word.
Well said, Tamara. And we'll see everybody back next week for the next episode of the Rip Off of the Week. And I just want to tip it a little bit.
Yes.
We are launching an investigation on New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. It launches over the next couple of days. And next week, we'll have a full explanation, 10 minutes right here on our pay-to-play investigation of the New York governor. See you back.
Awesome. See you guys next week, 6 o'clock Eastern. Don't miss it.